Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. This evening is December 15th, 2022. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, very good. Let's start as your hosts for the evening. We'll start with our introductions from my far left, please.
Good evening, Richard Tripp.
Jim Dietzel.
Gaspar Bimba.
Crystal Morin, Secretary.
And I'm Lynn Perkins, the chair.
Alan Vera, member.
Donald Burgess, member.
And we have Code Enforcement Officer Robert Mackey down to our far right, and our clerk Ginny Rio is in the back. She'll be taking the minutes. Let's recognize Mr. Corbett is our vice chair, and he is remote this evening. Mr. Corbett, are you out there?
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Thank you very much. All right, so let's do some announcements here. Please, in the event of an emergency, please exit to the rear of the room. Do not use the elevator, and someone will get to you and assist you. These proceedings are audio-video recorded and scheduled to terminate at 10 p.m. Please shut off all cell phones, iPads, iPhones, any other electronic gadgets that could create a distraction to the proceedings and the recordings. Other than that, I think we've covered all those introductory announcements. So with that, we'll get moving forward. Our first case of the evening is a request for rehearing, and that is submitted by Leanne Panarelli and Company. This case was originally case number 22-150. Let's note for the record that the abutters and Leanne Panarelli primarily has submitted on behalf of the abutters. She is address 13R Blackberry Road, Derry, New Hampshire. She's expressed concerns to the matter of the granting of a variance to Louis Arch and his request to build a home off of Poor Farm Road, which is noted as a Class 6 road, correct, Mr. Mackey? And that road would remain passable from Strawberry Hill Road all the way over to Bowers Road. At which time Mr. Arch has requested to be able to put a house off the side of Poor Farm Road, and at his expense, and certainly some review with the town to be able to extend the current road up to the point of his garage or his own driveway, at which that would be his expense to deal with as well. I believe the parcel is about 20 acres, something like that. And the applicants requesting a rehearing on this feel that they will suffer hardship or be infringed because that 20 acres that Mr. Arch is going to own would infringe on their ability to use that same parcel. At that point, I will rest. That is the backdrop to this request. Could I have some commentary from the board on the merits of this case? Mr. Ver, care to share anything?
Well, I recall that meeting where one of the abutters got up and expressed concern about whether or not they were able, would still be able to access that piece of property for recreational purposes. And the applicant, who was in the process of buying it, replied negative, that he was not going to do that, which I believe he has a right to do. So.
Good.
Mr. Chair, pardon the interruption. I just wanted to make you aware Mr. Donlin has joined us online. It is available.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Preventure. Mr. Burgess, you have any thoughts on this?
I wasn't here for this case.
You were not here for this case. That's correct. Okay. Mr. Obimba, any thoughts here?
No, just like Alan said, I was here, was a lengthy case. I feel like we covered lots of the issues raised in the letter that is being represented by the abutter here. The applicant answered all those questions and concerns that are being raised. I thought we did a pretty good job looking at all those concerns, and it seems like a repetition to grant a rehearing.
Is that to say, could you repeat that last part, please?
I'm looking at the letters and concerns raised in this request for a hearing, and I believe if you look at the minutes from last meeting, all of these seem to have been addressed by the applicant.
Very good, thank you. So you see no new information on this regard to rehear this case?
Not yet.
Very good. Mr. Corbett? Mr. Corbett? All right, let's jump over.
Muted. We'll just ask him to unmute, Mr. Chair.
Okay, could you unmute Mr. Corbett?
Yeah, a little
There you go.
technological difficulties. No, everything presented here, I think Mr. Obimba kind of summed it up. It was brought up during the meeting. It was addressed by the board. It was addressed by the applicant. I don't see any new information here that would require a rehearing.
Very good, thank you. And Mrs. Moran?
I agree with everything that's been stated. I feel that there's nothing new and that it was brought up and we talked about it, and there's nothing else to be added to it.
Very good. I likewise am in the same boat. I saw no new information here that's worth considering or that would provoke wanting to rehear this. I think all aspects were considered on this original hearing. So with that being said, Mrs. Moran, do you have a motion there?
I do. I make a motion to grant a rehearing request to Lee Ann Panarelli of case number 22-150, Lewis Arch, owners Albert and Judy Prescott, a variance to the terms of Article 3, Section 165-9 of the Town of Derry zoning ordinance and New Hampshire RSA 674.41 to allow the construction of a single-family dwelling on the property which has frontage on a Class 6 road at 3 Poor Farm Road, parcel ID 22012-003001, zoned MDR. And that concludes the motion. I need a second.
I'll second.
I have a second. Thank you very much, Mr. Ver, as a second. Let's just cover something under findings of fact. The request for the rehearing regarding Lewis Arch. The parcel is 20 acres. No new information has been presented to the board to consider rehearing, and the parcel is off of a Class 6 road. Anybody have any opposition to that finding of fact?
No.
Seeing no gestures there, that's my only amendment to the motion. All in favor of moving forward for a vote, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Let's poll the board. Mrs. Moran, you say?
Chair, I vote no.
Okay. Mr. Obimba?
I vote no as well.
Very good. Mr. Corbett?
Chair, I vote no. There's no new information presented. And just clerical, I believe we need to go back to get the reasons for the prior two no votes as well.
Very good. And Mr. Ver?
I also vote no. I don't believe there's any new information provided that would justify rehearing the case.
Very good. The chair will make it unanimous by a vote of 5-0 that there is no new information here worth rehearing. So the board has made that decision. By a vote of 5-0, the applicant has the right to appeal this to Superior Court if they wish to pursue this any further.
Can I say something, please?
You may, Mr. Tripp.
I believe it says 0 to 5, not a 5 to 0.
Well, on the nose, it's all 5-0, but it's a matter of semantics, so 5-0 is 0-5.
Okay, sorry.
Mr. Chair, not to argue semantics, one thing I didn't, when the first two votes went, they were both just no's without a reason. I think we just need to capture the reason.
What do you think?
To caption the reason, I just said no. I voted no because I felt that there was no new information presented.
Very good. Duly noted. Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Corbett, and thank you for clarifying, Mrs. Moran. Next case is case number 22-151, and this is Kenneth Foley. This is continued from 12/1/2022. Mr. Foley? You're flying solo this evening?
I am.
All right, very good. You've presented the board with a couple of considerations here, or options that you've worked on to try and come up with some solution to your request, which was to operate an electrician's business out of your home, correct?
Correct.
And I think we heard a lot from your butters, concerns they've claimed are directed in safety measures and ideas, but I think we heard some other utterings there that were of concern as well. Care to walk us through your solutions at all, or you want us to just self-engage in them?
I don't believe, where the car was, we moved. We changed the parking situation, so there's nothing near the road.
Okay. Anything else you wish to add here?
Not, where the cars were parked before, he's called the Derry police, and they said it's a legal spot as long as the car is registered.
Yep.
But just to get the permission, I rearranged the cars and we won't park there any longer.
Okay. So you have the plow truck and the bucket truck.
Yep.
Are you using those for business purposes?
The plow truck, no. The bucket truck, not often, but
Okay.
in rare cases.
So I think one of the things that I've noted here is that you have your van, and though this board typically does not want to, if we can find that the application, such as yours, is not obnoxious or noxious or fumes or noise or whatever, I think the board typically has liked to support endeavors such as yourself.
Yep.
However, there's limits to that, and I think we discussed, the aspects of blight and how properties' appearances come across to abutters. I think, in my own view, and we'll get the board's discussion on this, certainly I'm not opposed to having you operate your electrician's business out of it, but I'm concerned about the abundance and collection of other commercial vehicles, commercial-type vehicles that collect there. I think in your own testimony the last time you were here, you had mentioned that the bucket truck you were trying to discard or sell, is that correct?
Yep.
And is that still your intentions?
Yes, it's for sale.
Okay, very good. I've kind of highlighted this a little bit. Mr. Tripp, were you on this case?
I was.
Okay, very good. So we'll open this up to the board to ask any follow-up questions, Mr. Foley, before we go on into deliberative. Anybody wish to start off with any questions, or are there none?
On your left?
To your left, Mr. Tripp, I'll let you lead.
I was reviewing the information that you gave us, and it suddenly dawned on me that you have a garage.
Yeah.
But you have all these vehicles in the driveway.
Yep.
Can I be so bold as to ask what you use the garage for?
I have 2 personal cars in the garage.
Oh, so the garage is used as a
Yep.
garage. All right. That's, because it would seem that if you have a garage and it's not used, that
Yes,
you could...
I agree, yes.
You could clear out the driveway even a little more by putting them in the garage.
Yep.
But it appears that you've arranged the vehicles so that the ones that are most used are most accessible to the road. So
Correct.
You've done a good job in my mind.
Thank you.
Mr. Ver?
Well, I was looking at the pictures for solution number 2 that is presented to us, and all of a sudden dawned on me that in the picture, it looks like there's 2 storage trailers there. Are there?
Nope.
That was a no?
No, there's only one.
Okay, so it's a wide trailer, and it's got a pointed prow to it,
Yep.
right? Okay, that explains it. That explains it. Okay.
Who else was on this case?
Aye.
Mr. Burgess, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good question. I'm not sure exactly what I've looked at it a couple of times, but seems like we have almost the same resolution we had previously, except he had that car off to the left more on the grass, so at least that's in the yard now. Is there any way you can push that trailer back any?
The
Be a little more-
door folds down, and the door is actually
Oh,
right
and
at the
if you
line
don't-
of the
yeah,
concrete
okay.
steps.
I got it.
Yep.
Just have to answer the question, you know. Have to ask it anyways.
Can I clarify your question, Mr. Burgess? Was that question, can the trailer be pushed back?
Yeah.
I see, okay, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Burgess?
No, we're in the same spot we were before, except at least you got the car off the grass in the front.
I provided views of pulling, that's the view with the road is pulling out of Mecca Lane, so you can see.
This is
I don't think
not,
anything interferes with seeing the traffic on Floyd Road.
this is not anything that anybody wants you to, I know I've had spots like this in my lands previously. Might be a good idea to throw some sand in there so you don't have to run into the mud and crap, you know what I mean? Just, have nothing to do with the solution to this, it's just something I noticed.
Is that it for you, Mr. Burgess?
Yeah, that should do it, I think.
So I'd like to direct the board back to the main point, which is whether or not the applicant can operate the electrician's business out of his home. I think that one of the things that stirs the emotions is when you see an abundance of vehicles and then you see the other vehicles parked out at the road creating a hazard. It's a compiling issue. I think one of my concerns is if you have so many vehicles there and they are not passenger vehicles or vehicles that belong there, should they remain if you were going to grant permission or permit the application to proceed? I rest.
See, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Burgess.
there's nothing he can do about the vehicles he has currently, but he's trying to get rid of the, I forget what you call the truck, the boom.
The bucket truck, right? That's the bucket truck?
Bucket truck, there's the word. He's trying to get rid of that, so that would reduce the amount of commercial vehicles down, at least by one. Beyond that,
Well,
the applicant at least thought this out and tried to solve a problem with.
so if you're structuring a motion, would you say, yes, we grant permission for you to operate this business and keep trying to sell those other vehicles? Or would you pass this motion with some level of certainty?
That's a good question, I'm not sure of.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Tripp, Mr. Corbett, I'm sorry.
Yeah, to that question, that's where I was struggling at the last meeting, because if the business wasn't out of the house, what stops Mr. Foley from being able to park his vehicles at his house? And I feel it's two separate things, the way I look at it. And I can understand the statements of the the overuse of cars, the comment from the abutter that 2 hadn't moved in a few years. But I think with all the focus on just the parking of the cars and the amount of cars a person owns, I don't see how I understand that they are with the business, but if the business wasn't based out of this address, I don't understand what would stop him from them being parked in his driveway.
Well, I think that the board can make a motion to, or put a condition on this, that you grant permission to operate the electrician's business from the home. You allow one commercial vehicle, and you disregard any passenger vehicles. That's one way to address it. If somebody said to us, I want to operate a used car dealer out of my home and create that office space, and I'm only going to have 12 vehicles at my home to sell, would you say yes or no, or would you construct that to say, well, you can have one? And we've done that. This board has had to look at that type of circumstance in the past. So it's moderation that you're looking at, along with granting of the request of the, for permission to operate the business.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Ver?
got a question of the applicant.
Yes.
When did you establish your electrical business?
2017.
2017. I guess my concern is that at some particular point, I'm sure that, as most owners do in this type of business, look to expand your business and bring in more income and perhaps hire additional people, then the problem gets exacerbated.
Yep.
I have concerns about the number of commercial vehicles parked on the property, and share the sentiments of Chairman Perkins.
Mr. Tripp?
I guess, so you've been there since 2017. How long have you had the bucket truck?
Probably about the same time.
So are you working diligently to sell it, or?
I made an ad to list it, but
Yeah.
I also do like cut trees that I have to around the house with it. It's not just strictly for work, but I don't use it enough to. That's
Yeah.
why I listed it for sale.
Well, it was one of those things that if you're trying to sell it,
Yeah.
you know, yes, I guess you're trying to sell it, but you're not really working very hard to sell it. And, you
Well,
know,
I
this
work.
This is one of the bones of contention for the, getting the special exception. But,
I mean, that truck's tucked 100 feet off the road. I don't
Yeah.
really see how it's a problem to any safety, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily safety, but it's appearance and what does the property look like versus how the neighbors see it, right? And I think I touched on this when you were here a couple weeks ago, which was it's a compounding problem. So I think what you're seeing here is this delicate balance that this board is probably favorable to supporting your application, but it's going to be supporting it with conditions, which this board has historically done in certain aspects.
I understand where you're coming from. I just...
Often when somebody comes before us and wants to start a business out of their home, in this regard, the objection from the neighbors is, well, what's going to happen when his business grows? Where's it going to, you know? And I think Mr. Ver just touched on that, which is, well, what happens if all of a sudden you start building out and you need 5 employees? Those are and that's specific to this application and the question that's on it. So this is not without merit, and it's certainly not beating up on you individually, but it's using a guide that this board has often sought in making decisions. Mr. Tripp, did I cut you off?
oh, somewhat, but, you know, as always, you add value in your participation in the discussion.
Thank you.
You know, but I was just going to say that one of the reasons that, you know, I was looking at what you said about wanting to sell the bucket truck is, you know, the fewer vehicles that you have, the farther the remaining vehicles can be parked off of the road. You know, and since the abutters issue with, you know, you're having the business there is, you know, blocking the line of sight. You know, I think they would be more accepting if, the vehicles were farther off the road so that, they could see a little bit better, which is why I asked, how diligent are you about selling, some of these vehicles?
Yeah.
Because as you yourself said, they're not used a lot.
Yeah.
Now like you said, you haven't used the plow truck because it hasn't snowed.
Correct.
And I did notice that the plow truck is farther off the road, but we can't really ask you to get rid of it because you have to be able to clear your driveway.
Yeah.
So and that was the reason I asked, what you're using the garage for, because if the garage was available, then you could put some of the other vehicles, into the garage. I'm sure your tenant would love to have their vehicle out of the snow when it snows. That way they wouldn't have to clean it off. So, since you are using the garage as a garage, then we can't ask you to move some of the vehicles out of the driveway into the garage.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Corbett had his hand raised.
Very good. Mr. Corbett?
Mr. Chair, I had been muted after you had first spoken. What I wanted to come back to is where I'm hung up on this is kind of just where we're trending towards, because the letter of explanation we received, for the record, is that we have 2 work trucks, that the storage locker thing, it has the lettering on it, quote, because we worked hard to create the company and I'm proud of it, that we have things lettered with the truck. We have 2 that are identified as work trucks. It's established that the plow truck isn't. All the focus on the bucket truck, I'm just having a tough time understanding when it's not called out as part of the business. It says that we have 2 work trucks only, and we're putting a lot of time on a lot of personal cars. I guess that's where I'm stuck on where our focus is right now.
I'm not putting any time on their personal vehicles. I've already established that the passenger vehicles that would not be part of what this board would have purview on. But I certainly can note the difference, and I think if you look it up on Webster's, there's probably a difference between a passenger's vehicle and a bucket truck, and a passenger
Right,
vehicle.
but if it's established that the bucket truck isn't a work truck, I guess that's just where I'm stuck.
Well, I think that when you look back at this application for special exceptions and some of the questions, I think it's question number 6, raises it gives a definition or defines some of these things. I certainly think you can make an argument. You may not agree, but you can make an argument that too many commercial style vehicles in the driveway can be applied in that question. And I yield, you certainly can disagree with me on that if you'd like.
Okay.
It's not question 6.
No, it's not. I think number 5.
No, it's number 3.
3,
Sorry.
okay.
It's half of 6. So we're at a point where I think in some of the discussions are, if you can unload some of those commercial type vehicles and not have them there, if they're a business type of use that really don't belong there, the board certainly is amendable, I think, to not objecting to your operating an electrician's business there, but with some parameters to it.
Yeah.
And at which point, if your business grows and it becomes successful and you feel you need to have more of these things, you certainly would have to locate to a business condominium complex or something of that nature.
Yeah.
And certainly, in some regards, granting you seed money to keep going and to grow and do your God-given's right. This board isn't going to stand in that way, I don't believe. And I think to Mr. Tripp's point, if you don't have those vehicles there, All of a sudden, you open up the space, and none of this becomes a question anyway. But
Yeah.
at this point, where the board's probably going to give some parameters to the granting of this.
Okay.
I think one of the things that I spoke to and I addressed the last time that you were here is, the potentials of, and I was trying to give you that buffer of the potentials of trying to have this board make a decision and create some convenience area for you to go ahead with your business, such as removing the bucket truck and not having it there, or vehicles that are not passenger-type vehicles.
Yep.
That's what one of the things that we were looking for here. Do you have a solution to that bucket truck that can help resolve this?
In my eyes, I believe the cars are parked in a nice, neat manner, that they don't come near the road at all, and I think it doesn't look,
I understand, but that's not the question.
I mean, if the truck doesn't sell, I don't want to say, it's listed for sale, but I don't think it's an abundance. It's 2 commercial vehicles. I don't think it's like a big abundance. There's people all throughout the neighborhood that have commercial vehicles at their house.
Okay. Anybody else wish to follow up?
Well, just one point about the parking plan. No matter how you arrange it, you got a snow plow, you got a plow truck. We could have a snowstorm sometime this season, and if it snows heavily, it'd be very difficult to get rid of that snow and still maintain your parking profile.
Okay. And I think Mr. Tripp echoed that as well, in that he has a right to have a plow truck and plow his driveway as he sees fit. And I certainly think there's some exceptions there to all of it. And certainly the truck can be deemed into that category as a passenger vehicle as well. So, Mr. Foley, you've made your position clear, that you don't feel all these vehicles are an hindrance, and that you've come forward with a plan that the board should be able to accept as far as parking, so that you can move on and with your electrician's business. Is that correct? Yes. Very good. Anybody else have any other questions? Mr. Tripp?
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
just wanted to chime in
Mackey,
about
yes.
perhaps the possibility of an employee taking one of the vehicles home, coming and then leaving, to eliminate one of the vehicles, if that's a possibility.
Yeah, he drives a little Miata, so I think it's better to have his car parked off to the side and small, but...
Yeah, but if he drove a work vehicle, so the Miata disappears, he takes that vehicle home at night, the electrical vehicle, and then he comes in the morning. So the Miata's no longer on the site, because he's bringing it home and then showing up the next morning, and then going to a job, and then he takes it home at night. So there's no more...
Yeah, all I really have for that is my van, and if I get a service call at night, I don't have all my tools, my stock.
Well, just a thought.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mackey.
The van, not the van, but the trailer, is that used a lot?
It's all storage, because I don't have a shed back there.
So the garage doesn't have space to do storage?
I have my cars and bike in there.
Oh,
Motorcycle?
Yes.
Okay.
What's in the trailers? You say storage, but what's in the trailers?
I have my lawnmower, chop saw, all stuff.
It's your shed.
Expensive shed.
Yeah, basically.
Brakes.
I guess one of the other questions I would have is, right now you have a tenant that only has one vehicle. What if the tenant decided they wanted 2 vehicles? Now we're back to having lots of vehicles in a driveway. But we cannot, say that they can't have 2 vehicles. But it just there's just a lot of vehicles, That's,
but those would be personal vehicles,
Yeah,
Mr.
that-
Tripp.
yeah, but it's still,
Yeah.
you know,
We're concerned with, I think, commercial.
Yeah, we're thinking about the commercial end of it.
I agree with you that we're concerned with the commercial vehicles, but the other vehicles still occupy space and result in the commercial vehicles being, you know, up against the road, which is the issue at hand.
Yeah. No, I agree it'll lead to overcrowding, there's no question.
No.
So, Mr. Chair, Mr. Foley has presented two options for parking.
Yep.
Is it up to us to decide which one we prefer?
No, I actually don't think that that's the board's purview. I think that you could say, well, either one of these options are acceptable. I think Mr. Foley has already indicated about the parking and where that's acceptable.
Yeah.
And that is, I take it at his word that he's talked to, did you say talk to the police about it? And
Yeah, he's called the police on where the Miata was parked.
yeah, the neighbors has, and essentially the police have said there's no issue with parking there.
As long as the vehicle's registered, yes.
Sure. So again, the question doesn't come down to where he places his chess pieces or his vehicles. It's a matter of, the question is, he would like to operate an electrician's business out of this residence, and what are the conditions that you're going to do in regards to that? Are you going to say yes and do whatever you'd like, and you can have 10 commercial vehicles there? You can have 5 employees. Where is the break? And this traditionally is where the board's purview lies, not about arranging his parking for him. I appreciate the parking gesture because it starts to
Well,
unload some tension with your neighbors, right? But it can be, as it's been pointed out, that can be cured if there are not an abundance of commercial vehicles. And this board has often, not just with you, had to consider the same thing and usually rules in that regard. Okay?
well,
Mr. Burgess?
one of the things we had specifically requested was to get the employee's car off of the grass in front. And he did do that, which is one of those things. The other thing is personal vehicles, they already gave him a variance to allow that garage. So he has a right to park his cars in front of the garage.
That's correct.
But those personal vehicles, so as long as it's personal vehicles in front of the garage, then I don't see a problem. The other third part of it was the rest of the commercial vehicles.
That's correct.
Okay. And that's where we're hung up on right now.
That is correct.
Yeah. So he has already he's already told us, and we should maybe want to write this in, that he was going to get rid of that bucket truck, which I consider as a commercial vehicle because it's, what else would it be?
I would concur.
No.
You can keep it and own it, it just can't be on this parcel.
It's better if you can get rid of it, that's better.
But should we then agree on the limit of the number of commercial vehicles on the property?
Yes.
That's where we're going.
That's where we're headed.
That is
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, we're going to set conditions for this. And I think as I indicated at the last meeting, which was the applicability of a fine if you're not able to correlate these issues with that. Right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Corbett has his hand raised.
Mr. Corbett, thank you, Mr. Preventure. Mr. Corbett?
Unmute yourself.
Yep, so where this is headed, it's stated in the letter that there are 2 work trucks. I think if we were to put a condition in, personally what I'd like to see is what was presented to us, which is 2 trucks. But where the difficulty comes in that I was trying to get to earlier is the lettering on the other items. So as just came up, everyone saw the storage, what's being used as a storage shed. It has the company's logo on it.
Okay.
So even if we put in the condition of the 2, we have other items on the property with the logo. What is to differentiate what is a work vehicle and what isn't?
Good point.
You write it into the motion. if your desire is to have no other advertisement of any other vehicle or trailer on the parcel, you bring that forward and it's debated on the board in deliberative.
Okay, because I think that's where we want to go, because what I see is we already have an ask for 2, what we're calling out that there's lettering on other items. Where I'd probably feel more comfortable when we got there is something like that, where we stipulate, unfortunately, I understand that we're proud of the logo, but it can't be on, multiple pieces of property unless it's for the commercial use.
Okay? Certainly is going into uncharted waters, but I understand it. I understand it on the basis of what the purview of the board is. And so at this point, you're into this kind of sticky wicket where you don't necessarily want to be, but I understand your point.
Yeah, that's where I was trying to get to earlier, where I was having a tough time with the cars, because as I looked at it, I see the ask of 2, I see the other things that are called out that look like work cars but aren't.
Okay. What is the lettering on your trailer?
It's just the logos.
Fully, KF?
Yep.
I see, yep.
There is lettering on your pickup truck, though, is there not?
It's like, you can't see it from the road. It's like,
Well, I mean,
it's called ghost lettering. It's just logo on the door. It's
Just the logo? Nothing to do with the nature of the company, like
no,
electrical?
just
or-
this logo.
But the logo-
It says it under it, K Foley Electric, but it's
Okay, so it's a commercial vehicle?
Yeah.
okay.
It is.
Okay, it's ghost lettering, but there's no advertisement in it at all.
I have a question.
Mrs. Moran?
Who's the bucket truck registered to? Is it
It's-
registered to you or the business?
It's registered to me.
All right. And the personal truck, is that registered
forgot
to
to
you or
shut
the
this off.
business?
It's all registered to me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Tripp? All set?
Yep.
Okay. You gentlemen all set? And Mr. Corbett, are you all set as well? Or do you have any other questions left for Mr. Foley?
No, I have no more questions for Mr. Foley. I think I've established where I was.
Okay.
There's also Mr. Donlands out there.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Donlin, well, I'm trying to keep this, Mr. Burgess, to the people
Oh,
who are
okay,
sitting on
fine.
this case. So.
Fine. We had a case that was restrictive to how many vehicles were on their property. It was the one that I always forget the name of the gas company that's down by my house on High Street, North High Street. Granite, yeah. So at the time, they had written into the case, the decision for the case, how many trucks a person could have, that this person, as well as employees,
Yep.
purchased, that were allowed on the property, so that we could do something similar to that.
Well, and I can remember specifically, I think at that time, which was 10 years ago?
11?
Yeah.
Yeah. They had a 1996 Plymouth Voyager as part of one of the vehicles that was allowed to be there and parked there as part of the business. So it just goes to the point that we're not out of our bounds. It's just,
Right.
it's unusual that it's getting this minute in detail to discuss, but certainly if Mr. Foley come in and say, we're getting rid of all of anything commercial related, we'll have the one vehicle, we'd like to have a second pickup with our letters on it, and then the rest is just all passenger cars, solution's done, and it's over.
Yeah.
Follow?
Yep.
Well, I think that's the problem. We have to remember that, what we're here for is to grant an exception to a business in a home residential area. We're not, I don't think the applicant should be expecting that, he can have a full-blown business that would normally be in a commercial area at his house. And that's where I am having difficulties. Because, the garage, which could be used for something else, has got other vehicles in it. And it's just that we can't make it look like a business where the only time the vehicles are going to be there is like overnight or something, you know, and he's always going to be working someplace else, you know, but like I said, we're at the point where, you know, how many vehicles are too much, you know, and because this is a residential area, it's not a commercial area, which is the problem that I'm having.
Yep.
You know, and I don't know of too many people that have, you know, a trailer that has
Their business name?
business name on it, you know, that has a bucket truck that has their name on it, has, you know, I know there's people that have, you know, a plow truck that is only used for plowing,
Yep.
you know, but to say that, well, we're going to allow you to have, you know, 6 other vehicles is a bit much for me.
Yeah, and we don't regulate how many passenger vehicles or hobby vehicles or whatever that somebody has. But to your point, when they have so many and they're trying to run a business out of their home and they have so many of those personal toys that are pushing their business out into everybody's face, that's where a lot of the problem is come about. So you are certainly entitled to your hobby and having as many personal vehicles as you'd like. But when a complaint like this comes forward and it's due to that, that's kind of where this board needs to step forward. Okay? Other than that, you know, we've had a lot of questions and back and forth, but specific to this application, unless Mr. Foley has anything else he'd like to say to us, we can take a motion to go into deliberation.
I'll make a motion, we go to deliberative session.
Mr. Ver has that motion.
I'll second it.
Please. Very good. Mr. Corbett, by the way, before we go, all in favor, are you all set?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Thank you. All in favor of going to deliberation, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, so we will deliberate. Mr. Corbett, you had some concerns about some of the off vehicles. Would you like to lead this?
Yeah, and it was just where I went at the end of it. I felt a lot of the discussion was focused on, well, I can recognize that they are commercial vehicles not being used for the business. I just felt that was getting a little confusing, but I think I do agree that putting a limit on it, I think we have the letter of explanation stating that we have 2 work trucks. I think we have a number there that works, you know, to capitalize as 2 commercial vehicles. But the lettering on the other items is just where I also find things where it starts to muddy the waters or get confusing. I mean, typically, you know, we're going to have one sign that can be no larger, forget the number off the top of my head. But now where does that lead to? If we have a sign, now we have, you know, 3-4 cars that have some type of lettering on it, it starts to get confusing, not just to the neighbors, but to kind of anybody of what's a work vehicle and what isn't. So that's just what I would probably want more defined here. You know, I'm okay putting a limit on 2 work vehicles, but it's how do we handle everything with the logo on it?
Okay. Mr. Ver, you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we need to, or we probably should consider limiting the number of commercial vehicles displayed as such, which would include the pickup truck with the logo on it. And I know the bucket truck, but been there since 2017, so I'm not so sure how quickly that's going to move. So I think we ought to consider that, and for now, limit it to 2 commercial vehicles.
2 commercial vehicles with lettering.
Identified with lettering.
Okay.
And I've given, I don't know, we've done this before, but what are the prospects of us actually putting a sunset on this for reconsideration?
That's something new.
Are you suggesting a timeline for
Yes,
the possible conditions to be accepted?
Yes, 2 years unless additional complaints from the abutters are received? Just a thought.
Well, what type of complaints, Mr. Burke? Because I think that's kind of a dangerous road to start to head down.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's one we have, a path we haven't gone in the past, but I don't think we're restricted from going there.
Yeah, this was kind of a suggestion on your part, correct, Mr. Burr?
Yes.
Yeah. And I have to go with Mr., what's his name?
Corbett.
Corbett, right.
Craig, remember him?
On this is it creates this slippery road, right? I think we already have an abundance of complaints, and some of them, I get the sense, are just agitation complaints and not always with merit. So how do you stipulate that down the road? I'm okay. I think I'd rather stick to the commercialization of the residential property and anything related to in that regard, and put the limit on the vehicles. I think that code enforcement would appreciate that as well.
Well, a lot of, not to interrupt you, but a lot of enforcing of ordinances, somewhat relies upon abutter feedback.
Yep.
I mean, that's kind of the principle of the idea.
Right.
Code enforcement can't be everywhere on every street in the town of Derry with 2 code enforcement officers.
No, and I understand, and that's kind of where I'm going is they don't need the phone ringing off the hook because one of the neighbors didn't like how the headlights were left on somebody's vehicle overnight or something,
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Tripp?
One of the things that I thought was interesting about Ms. Moran's question was when she asked, are these vehicles registered to the company or are they personal vehicles? And I believe that Mr. Foley said that they were all registered in his name.
Correct.
So this is one of those things that if we're going to limit how many commercial vehicles there are, usually don't the vehicles have to be registered commercial instead of personal?
Well, I use the phrase passenger vehicles.
Passenger vehicles.
Specifically because that kind of covers these aspects. So commercial vehicle, commercial related, like
A truck?
the van is not, though it carries passengers, it's really not that passenger type vehicle.
What about the trailer?
Well, that goes into the other point that I said, which was the commercialization of the residential
Yes.
property, right? Often with a special exception, there's the question of the sign. Which question is that number? Is that, Ms. Moore?
I have a 1-ton pickup
6.
that's considered a commercial vehicle.
Yes, number
Well, it's not a pickup,
Yeah,
it's a flatbed.
So, the application comes in with the question, with the request for a sign, and we limit that as well. But in this regard, you've got the commercialization of different vehicles or of the property through vehicles and through a trailer. And so, again, he can have the stuff, but not necessarily on the property if it's the commercialization of the property.
I would agree with you on that.
Okay.
Because it ceases to be a residential area and becomes, a business.
Yes.
Which it is, but, you're operating a business out of the area, not, storing everything there.
But that's where the business lives, at this address. The business lives there.
Well, I think Mr. Tripp understands that, but
Yeah.
what I'm getting from Mr. Tripp is that he's relating to the identity of the commercialization of the residential property.
Yes.
And so therefore, under that, in that light, that's where you take license to make the stipulations on things such as a trailer or additional vehicles and so on and so forth. Am I correct?
Very correct.
Okay. So in that regard, and Mr. Corbett, please chime in whenever you'd like. Is he limited, Mr. Preventure, or can he speak whenever he'd like?
You can speak whenever.
Nobody limits me, Mr. Chair.
I understand that, nor the speed that you speak at. So, Mr. Corbett, I guess I'm looking for your input on that identity of how you define the commercialization of the residential property.
I think, it's like, honestly, what I feel like is the Supreme Court definition of pornography. They know it when they see it. I feel like that's how you know it's a commercial vehicle on the property. What would make me feel better, just based on the collection of vehicles on the property, based off, between the plow truck, the electrical truck, would just be to limit the amount of cars parked on the property with the business logo on it. I think if we can limit that, that would probably make me feel better about the commercialization.
So I didn't quite hear everything there, but if anybody else can interpret a little bit there, I'm
It was
happy.
mainly if we could limit how many cars, not necessarily just the type of car, but the amount of vehicles parked there that have the company logo on it. I think it gets confusing with the what's being used, storage shed having it, with the truck that has it, with the actual cars, business cars that have it. I think if we can limit X amount of cars or vehicles on the property that have the logo, that would help with commercialization.
How about 2 commercial vehicles with or without lettering as a condition?
Sure.
Does that work for Mr. Tripp?
Certainly.
Mr. Burgess, okay. And so do you want to extend an arm in regards to the trailer lettering, which again brings us back to the commercialization of a residential property? Mr. Corbett?
Well, that's where what I was trying to limit, put a total limit of what can have the logo on it, because I
Got
think
it.
that's what starts to make things difficult.
Okay, got it. So if anybody wants to help me phrase this, 2 commercial vehicles with or without lettering.
You want to add the trailer in?
Lettered
Two lettered
advertisement
commu-
limited to those 2 vehicles.
2 lettered commercial vehicles. Just a suggestion.
Well, I would like to limit it to 2 commercial vehicles
Yes.
with or without lettering. And also,
Could we put in lettered vehicles not to exceed 2?
Yeah, well,
advertisement of the business limited to those two commercial vehicles.
Yeah. Or other ancillary, yeah, something.
Is the bucket truck lettered?
It is not.
Is the trailer lettered?
Yes.
And your work van is lettered?
Yep.
So there's,
plow truck?
say again?
Plow truck isn't lettered.
No, well, plow
It
truck.
has this logo on the doors, but if I have to take the sticker off the door, I will.
So I would caution us on, we're in deliberative. I realize I broke protocol slightly, but advertising the business limited to the two vehicles.
Yes. Do we define the trailer as being the vehicle?
Well, and where I'm going with this is advertisement of the business limited to 2 vehicles only,
Yeah, okay.
which excludes the trailer, which excludes anything else. And I think by the prior 2 commercial vehicles with or without lettering only establishes how many commercial vehicle, type vehicles can be there, which essentially says the work van, and I guess if I were, based on the testimony given, would say there's a plow truck, which means the bucket truck would have to go. Now, and the applicant could put advertising on the plow truck if he wanted to or not.
Yeah. Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
the applicant is also asking for a sign in number 6. I think in that case, we should exclude a sign.
On the vehicles?
No, a display sign, advertising device.
Okay. Mr. Corbett, did you pick up on that?
I did, and I was thinking that when I was mentioning the vehicles originally, but I feel that we need to have a sign, that's advertising that the business is there. I would, and I'm okay with that. I would just say a limit on how many vehicles have the advertising on it, because I do think you want to call out the property, because the vehicles will be leaving the property.
Would bring down to 2 vehicles with advertisement on it, rather that are commercial vehicles with advertisement on it, rather than the removal of a sign. I don't know if I'm making it clear.
You're not for me, but
Okay,
go ahead and repeat.
excuse me. You were limiting it to 2 commercial vehicles with lettering on it as advertisement for the business. So I'm saying just put down 2 commercial vehicles with advertising on it.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
Sorry.
then allow the sign as a different issue,
So
rather than eliminate it, basically.
the second condition I had was advertisement of the business limited to 2 vehicles only and 1 sign.
That
yes.
would work.
Okay.
As I say, we can play off exactly what number 6 says on the application and word it that way. I think what you say is correct.
Very good.
Now, does that preclude the applicant from having another work truck but no signage on it?
No, because the first condition that I mentioned was 2 commercial vehicles with or without lettering, which allows him the 2 commercial vehicles. He can put lettering on 1 or both.
Yeah, okay.
Okay?
Yeah. And we're going to grant a sign.
And then the advertisement of the business limited to 2 vehicles only and 1 sign. And Mr. Mackey, you have to take a... Did he fall asleep? Okay, good enough.
He left us.
We'll come back to him.
I think you
after
outlasted
station
his
High and
identification. All right, good enough. I was worried we'd put him to sleep. Well, we're gonna get out of this in just a minute. I think, are we all set? Anybody have anything else that is of concern here?
I'm good.
Do you think we have everything covered? Okay, very good. Okay. Well, that's not up to us, I guess. All right, well, let's move forward then. I think if we're all set and everyone has put their conditions in, Ms. Rio, he would have to apply for a sign anyway, correct? Okay, very good.
3 square feet on not internally illuminated.
3 square feet,
Very
I
good,
thought it was.
thank you.
Okay.
All right, that being
I
said,
make a motion to come out of deliberative session.
thank you, Mr. Burgess. Anybody want to, Mr. Burgess has that motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Ver has a second. All in favor of coming out of deliberative, let's say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we're out of deliberation. Mrs. Moran, you have those 2 conditions additional written there? Oh, okay. You want me to, right there, you can read them right there? Motion, and then add those 2 to the back of the conditions.
You didn't put hours of operation, are you getting rid of that?
Did we do an all in favor of coming out of deliberation?
Yep.
Yes.
We did. Anybody have any stipulations on hours of operation?
No.
Well,
It
since they're
was-
not
Donnie asked that.
doing work there, I don't see where that would be applicable.
Yeah, there's no,
You know,
People can call us telephone anytime they want.
Very good. Well,
When the original proposal came through, it was mentioned Monday through Friday, 7 to 5.
Yeah. I thought that was in here
Yeah,
someplace.
I think that Mr. Tripp made the point, and Mr. Burgess backed it up, that the type of business this is, that would be impractical. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, good enough. I'm with you on there. So there's 3-2 anyway. All right? So we're all set. Mrs. Moran, you have a motion to read.
I do, thank you. I make a motion on case number 22-151, Kenneth Foley, to grant a special exception as provided in Article 6, Section 165-47.A.1 of the Town of Derry zoning ordinance to allow the operation of an electrical contracting business from the residence at 6.5 Floyd Road, parcel ID 09036, zoned LMDR, as presented with the following conditions. We have two. One, subject to obtaining all state and town permits and inspections. And the second is advertisement of the business will be limited to 2 vehicles only and 1 sign, and no more than 2 commercial vehicles with or without lettering. And this concludes the reading of the motion. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Mr. Ver has a second on that motion. Let me add in the findings of fact that the parcel is a 2-family residential dwelling. The applicant wishes to have an electrical contracting business from the residence office space that they do reside at the office space the business is currently operating at, and multiple vehicles associated with this business are stored at the property. The board's decision is based on an overabundance of vehicles and to modify that. Anybody have an objection to the findings of fact?
No.
Very good. Therefore, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Mrs., oh, you already read the motion. Anybody object to moving this for a vote?
Nope.
Very good. So we'll poll the board. Thank you. No, I don't want that one. Where's mine of this case? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Furr, what say you?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett, what say you?
Yes.
Mrs. Moran?
Chair, I wasn't on this case. Mr. Tripp and Mr. Burgess was. I wasn't here.
Thank you. Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Mr. Burgess?
Yes.
And the chair will make it unanimous as well. So, Mr. Foley, there was your granting with the conditions. Anybody aggrieved by this decision has 30 days to ask this board for a rehearing. After that, recourse is to Superior Court. Okay?
Yep.
Wish you well.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service to the country.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
request to sit the next case out and allow an alternate to reside.
Very good, thank you. We will do that. Mr. Dietzel, I'm going to have you sit on the next case.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Before we proceed, that case parched me, so I'm going to ask for a
Test. Sorry.
3-minute break, and then we will come right back to this, okay?
Doesn't matter, I can use this one.
3 minutes.
All you have to do is turn it on.
Starting
Very good, thank you. Calling up the next case, Leanne Willett Peluso. That's case number 22-152.
Here we come.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good.
Have you introduced yourself?
I'm Leanne Willett Peluso.
Very good. So, I don't know if you've watched our board meetings before, but I'll have you start by reading your application in its entirety, and then we'll barrage you with questions.
So just read 1 through that application, the 1 through 9, like that part?
So could you speak to the mic?
Yep, sure. Read the numbers down,
Yes.
like just read what it says. All right, so the dwelling is my residence. We purchased the house on October 31st this year, 2022. So the home business, it's a photography, I'm a photographer, so I'm just looking for an office space, a very small little studio area. Most of the photography I do is outdoors on location.
Could I get you to read the question at the same time?
Oh, sure,
please?
yeah,
Thank
sorry. All right, so the residential use was established by the applicant prior to the filing of the request of the special exception. It was established October 31st, 2022. The proposed home business will not be injurious, noxious, or offensive to the neighborhood by reason of emission of odor, fumes, dust, smoke, vibration, noise, or other cause. I'm a photographer. I'm mostly on location and would be meeting with clients to review their images. The home business will be conducted within the residential structure or other existing structure and will not exceed 25% of the finished living area of the dwelling. I would only be using one room in the house as a studio and possibly just a little other space to put a little backdrop up occasionally. The home business will not change the residential character of the dwelling or the property. Nothing outside will be changed. No more than one sign or other advertising device will be displayed on the property, and it will not exceed 3 square feet. And yes, I think the sign I have now is possibly 2 feet by 18 inches or something like that. Not more than one person not residing in the dwelling unit will be employed on the premises at the same time. Total number of non-residents employed would be 0. It's just myself. Sufficient off-street parking will be provided for employees, clients, and customers. Where lot size permits, the parking will not be provided within 25 feet of the front lot line, nor within 10 feet of the side or rear lot line. And I provided an overhead of the parking with the measurements of 65 feet by 40 feet. And there aren't any other employees, it would just be me or one car at a time typically. Not more than one home business use will be conducted on the property, and it would just be myself as the only business in the home.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Ms. Peluso.
Do you do mostly portraitures or, yeah?
Mostly high school senior portraits, some families, some kids, and some business portraits.
Yeah,
And
okay.
yeah,
Do you go off location occasionally?
mostly, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all right.
Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, Mr. Furry. You done? Are you finished? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Okay. I see the date is 10/31/22. Is that when you moved into this house or when you came to Derry?
That's when we moved. We just moved here from Massachusetts, from Wilmington,
Oh,
Massachusetts.
well, welcome.
Thank you.
Very good. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Do you have a bucket truck?
I do not have a bucket truck. No, I do not.
I know you'll be surprised, but I know this property pretty well, and it's perfect for a photographer. Like,
That's
it's
part of why I want it.
gorgeous.
yeah. I know the location also.
Yeah,
I've
it's-
admired that house for years.
That was part of the reason we've been looking for a while, and that kind of popped up, and I was like,
That's good.
It's pretty. Yeah.
Yeah, the property looks like it would be just the perfect place to have photographs taken in the backyard.
I had a studio in my prior home, and I had a very small outdoor space, and I used to use that, and I was like, this is like,
Yep.
So, on your left?
Going to have any particular hours of
Tripp, go ahead.
operation?
yeah, so it varies. Most of it's daytime when it's daylight, but I kind of put online that my hours are Monday. I'm trying to remember what it varies, so I kind of put like a general time, like 10 to 5. I think I had 9:30 to 5, Monday and Tuesday and Thursday, and then Saturday is like 10 to 2.
On the letter we have, it's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, 2 to 7.
I was gonna say, I forgot what it, well, so that's what I was gonna say, I put like, so there's office hours and then there's like picture taking hours, so 2 to 7 would be when I leave to go take you know what I mean? Like I was trying
And
to,
then on Saturday, it was 10 to 4.
10, yeah, I don't know, I kind of like just leave it up to, it's not real specific.
On your left?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Tripp. Go ahead.
Just for information's sake, will you be doing any developing of photos at the,
No,
right, so there's no chemicals, there's no,
no,
all right,
it's
so
all
there's,
digital, it's all sent out.
so there's no hazardous waste?
No.
There's no, all right, well, we have to ask.
No, it used to be, but no, not now.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the hours of operation for a second, because I missed some of the answers and the back and forth on it. Are you looking for hours of operation specific?
No, oh, me or them?
Yeah, yeah.
Not necessarily. Most of it, so daytime, you know, when people are at work and at school, I do office work, which is kind of what I put on my web, on Google, is that time when people can contact me. And then the hours I gave you guys would be the time that I'm either taking someone's pictures or meeting with them to review their images. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. So did you have something constructive? Like, I heard something about
So the
Saturdays.
hours that he has listed on that paper would be, if I was looking for hours, that would be the one. Those would be the ones, because that would be when I would be meeting with clients.
It would seem to me that your type of business, like, would be Sundays. You know, somebody's working all week, but the weekend
Yeah,
time.
okay, well, so I always book on Saturday, and I use Sunday as a rain date, so that's why I have Saturday listed as a date.
Does the board feel that setting, if they were going to, I guess one thing to consider for the board is, prior to we go into deliberative, is does setting business hours for this type of establishment apply, understanding how it's the service to the public and whatnot, just a consideration, so. Anyway. Anybody else have any other questions? Everybody's all set? Mr. Mackey, your first time tonight, you get to give us the staff rundown.
Well, I'll be brief. Other than it looks like she's requesting a sign, and we'll need to get a permit for that. Otherwise, it is a lovely old farmhouse with the big maple trees in front and pretty
Yeah.
nice setting.
Okay, very good.
Just a question of curiosity. The building that's to the right of the barn, as you look at it, what's its use?
It's gone. It was gone before we bought it. I guess
Really?
they dismantled it, I think, recently and removed it.
I haven't been
I know,
back.
it's on that picture, and I didn't have a picture. That was just, I was
Yeah.
trying to get the measurements, the overhead, but we had asked that too. It's in, like, if you Google Earth
is
it, it still
gone.
shows it, but it's no longer there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember seeing that. It had fallen into disrepair in the last few years.
I didn't think it was that bad off, but honestly, I went by there today, just inadvertently in my
Yeah.
travels. I didn't even notice that it was missing. I think I'd gone by there last week. I didn't notice it was missing. So,
I think it's been gone for a few months, the former owner. They got a demo permit.
But it was too bad. It was rotted too bad.
okay, well, good enough.
Okay.
Mr. Obimba, you have anything?
No, I think Tripp already asked a question about waste and
Well, let's recognize Mr. Donlin, if he has anything, unless he's left us.
He is still present, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I would never leave you guys. But I do not have anything other than I would agree with the don't strong arm yourself into hours on Sundays.
Yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Corbett, you're all set as well?
Yeah, same point that you and Mr. Donlin made. Wouldn't really put too much into the hours because of the service it provides. Typically, with families, off hours can be what works. So just keep that stuff in mind.
Great. Okay, very good. I think we've gotten everything covered here, unless you have anything left to add to us, Ms. Paluso. I think we could take a motion. You all set?
Yeah.
Okay, we can take a motion, go into deliberate. All right, wait a minute, we got to call
You
the
got
public. I'm
to call to
sorry.
the public, yeah.
The first two cases put me into bad habits, so we'll make a call to the public. So we'll post some phone numbers up there for people who are remote. These are opportunities for those folks in the remote world to chime in and give their input, both in support or opposition to this application. Phone numbers posted up there are 646-558-8656. At the prompting, just enter the meeting identity number, which is listed on our screen. And in the event you have any difficulties getting into the meeting, you can call 845-5585. Thank you, Mrs. Moran. So that being said, we'll take an opportunity here. Anybody wish to support this, speak in support of this application, this would be your opportunity to do so. Seeing nobody rise, while we're waiting to see if anybody remotely wants to chime in, I'll make the call now officially to anyone who might be in opposition to this application. This would be your opportunity to say so or have your point of view heard. Seeing any gestures out there, Mr. Preventure?
Seeing none rise, Mr.
All
Chair.
right, so just briefly, if you need to get into this meeting, you would press star 9 on your phone and we would recognize you. And I guess that's still nobody. Very good.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Fairly simple. So now we can dart off to the deliberative process. Anybody wish to make that motion, please?
I make a motion to go into deliberative session.
Mr. Dietzler, you want to second that?
I second that motion.
Very good. Mr. Dietzler has a second. Going into deliberation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we have, subject to obtaining all state and town permits and inspections, probably a minor issue there. The board is, I think, is not in favor of creating hours of operation on this application. Is there anybody that thinks otherwise?
No, she's not hosting events, so.
Okay. And then the sign not to illuminate, exceed the 3 square feet. Mrs. Paluso has agreed to that already. Are there any other conditions anybody wishes to put on there? No?
No.
Photos of this year's zoning board?
Yeah. Take our portraits, yeah.
I'll submit my Snapchat
Headshots for
selfie.
everyone.
Well, seeing as how Mr. Donlin was so wonderful about saying he'd never leave us, I figured this was that time for brotherhood and sisterhood in regards to Mrs. Moran.
You missed your call for modeling.
Yeah, I'm sure I did. All right, well, if all conditions are met here, all concerns, we take a motion and come out of deliberation, please.
I'll make the motion to come out of
Mr.
deliberative
Burgess
session.
has that motion. Anybody wish to
I'll
second?
second it.
Mr. Ver has a second. We're coming out of deliberation. Mrs. Moran, you have a motion to read.
I do, thank you. I make a motion on case number 22-152, Leanne Willette Paluso, to grant a special exception as provided in Article 6, Section 165-48.A.1 of the Town of Derry zoning ordinance to operate a photography office and studio at the residence at 134 Island Pond Road, parcel ID 06025, zoned LDR, as presented with the following conditions. We had 2. 1, subject to obtaining all state and town permits and inspections. 2, sign not to exceed 3 square feet and not to be internally illuminated. And that concludes the motion. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Mr. Ver has that second off of Mrs. Moran's motion. Just prior to moving this for a vote under the findings of fact, let it be noted that the applicant will use less than 25% of the home square footage. The office will be a converted bedroom and have outside photo sessions. A sign the size of the normal ordinances is being requested. The zoning is LDR, and the board sees no infringement on any abutters. Anybody have any exceptions to those findings of fact? Seeing no gestures there, all in favor of moving this for a vote, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, so poll the board. Mr. Ver?
I vote yes.
Very good. Mr. Burgess?
I will vote yes.
Mr. Dietzel?
Yes.
And Mrs. Moran?
Chair, I vote yes as well.
And the chair will vote yes as well, making that unanimous. So congratulations
Thank
and
you.
enjoy your photography. Anybody who is aggrieved by this decision, however, has 30 days to ask this board for reconsideration. After that, recourse will be to Superior Court.
Thank you.
And good luck and
Thank you.
enjoy that home.
Thank you very much.
There's nobody here that hasn't appreciated that house.
Oh, beautiful,
Thank you.
beautiful farmhouse.
Okay.
Okay, next up is Joseph McCarron. We are represented, these folks are represented. I'll tell you what, I'll let you introduce yourself. What do you think about that?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And good evening to the Honorable Board. My name is Christopher Drescher, and I'm here today on behalf of the owners/applicants. I apologize off the bat. Joseph McCarron very much did want to be here, but he did have a last-minute family emergency that occurred in the 11th hour earlier today that intervened, unfortunately.
All right, well, very, very good. Well, let it be noted that Mr. McCarron has signed permission to be represented.
Correct. Thank you very much. And if I may, Mr. Chair, I'll proceed. This is a variance renewal request. The variance request is to allow for a proposed single-family home to be constructed on a pre-existing non-conforming lot of record. I should actually note it for the record that location is the address is 13 Field Road here in Derry, tax map 56, lot 001. The town of Derry granted 2 variances on the subject property for frontage and for setback from a wetland, the wetland being a small brook that runs alongside the property. The applicant previously filed for variance relief from the frontage and setbacks to permit a single-family home to be constructed on this lot, which again is pre-existing and non-conforming. The setback variance was granted at the initial hearing. The frontage variance was later granted at a rehearing sometime around May 7th, 2020, and you'll have to forgive me, I was not there for that. The decisions of this zoning board were not appealed at that time. The specific relief was asked for the record, from Article 3, Section 165-20, parentheses small a, and Article Roman numeral 6, Section 165-46.c.2 of the Derry zoning ordinance. Following that last hearing, the applicant also pursued a lot line adjustment, which was to adjust the borders just so that the neighboring property, which is owned by a family member at 55 North Shore Road, and the objective of that was to provide access to the lake. It seemed to behoove the situation a little more to pursue that lot line adjustment as opposed to an easement. Originally it was going to be an easement, but in the end they felt actually adjusting the lot would be stronger than the easement. That lot line adjustment was recently approved just about a month or so ago by the planning board. I apologize, I don't know the exact date. And actually worth noting that the lot line adjustment actually extended the, I'm going to use air quotes here, the non-frontage. I mean, the whole reason we needed frontage relief was because it's a private road. And actually extended that frontage on that private road for what that term is worth, increased it. The boundary line or the lot line adjustment was delayed throughout the process for a number of reasons, not the least of which was the pandemic. And then in addition to that, I don't totally throw the engineering folks under the bus, but they sort of took their time, and as a result, the time lapsed. And we realized that the due date for these, to act on these variances was coming up, which is why we're here tonight. The standard, for the extension of a variance depends on whether or not there's been any changes to the neighborhood. In this case, the neighborhood has not changed at all. It is and always has been a single-family neighborhood. Thus, the passage of time has not really resulted in any change. It is the applicant's intention to, now that the lot line adjustment has been solidified, to start moving forward. And we are, of course, well aware that we do need a municipal waiver that needs to be recorded before they can build. That was going to be something we're going to check that box when they had to go in to pull a permit. And so with that note, we do ask this honorable board to kindly grant this extension. And then the applicant will be acting on that as warmer weather is upon us shortly. I'm not sure if you want me to go through the old variance criteria or not, but I'll leave that at your discretion, Mr. Chair.
Any questions from the board at this time?
No questions. Only, just a comment.
Yeah, Mr.
This was very well vetted at the time, and I remember the case very well. I can understand the delay and the subsequent requests coming in now at this time, so.
Yeah, and it was, as I recall, it was a little bumpy there on the first couple of times in here, correct? It's my recollection anyway. Of course, I was in Jamaica.
That's what the record would reflect if you went back on it. I wasn't here at the time, but
Yeah, there was some discussion about the wet area.
Correct, yeah. And I recall
the flood zone, the AE zone.
Right. And I know I did notice something in the record about the snow plowing and things like that, and
Yes.
that will be handled. My client has gone on the record saying that he'll certainly work with anyone and rectify any issues with that.
All right, very good. Mr. Mackey, you have any updates or changes significant to the board's decision?
Not really, other than, again, this would be a renewal as opposed to an extension. Typically, the way the board has handled it is if a variance comes back to you before it actually expires, then we do the extension. But since these, one expired in March of this year and the other one in May, I believe. So for that, technically, I guess we say they have to have a new vote on that variance. So, but you have the two separate motions because one deals with the wetland setback, one deals with the frontage. And as Attorney Drescher said, the only change is they did kind of a funky lot line adjustment where in the end, it was a wash as far as the area goes, so it didn't require zoning board approval. But the purpose of it was basically to give the lot in the back, owned by McCarran, access to the lake without, so that he would actually own the property, that it wasn't an easement. So, and that was approved by the planning board, so.
Very good, thank you very much. Anybody remote, Mr. Donlin or Mr. Corbett, thank you. You have any questions out there? Gentlemen?
No, Mr. Chair, I remember this case very well. Both times that it came through. I have no questions at this time.
Okay, very good. Mr. Donlin, you all set?
Mr. Chair.
All set. Mr. Chair.
Very good. Let me look down to my left.
Oh, so there's no issues with wells or septic with this?
No, it's the original requests were just on, well, there are three things, right? The lot line adjustment, the wetland setback, and then the frontage not being on a town-approved road. So those were the questions, and these were granted, and they were broken up because one decision was approved, and the other one had to be was asked for a rehearing. We granted the rehearing, on the second of the two, and that was consequently approved in May. So they were 2 months apart, the two motions were. But those weren't concerns or issues under the purview of the board.
On the previous variance.
Correct.
All right.
It's on town sewer, Richard.
Right.
Oh, it is?
Will be tied into town sewer.
So it'll be on water and sewer. All right.
Not water, it'll be a well, but municipal sewer.
Oh, that's right. It's on Beaver Lake, right? So, okay.
And we do have the shoreland approval as well from DES.
So gentlemen, Mr. Dietzel and Mr. Obimba, any questions from you?
All set,
Both
Mr. Chair.
Understand what's going on here? Very good. Mrs. Moran, you all set?
I am.
Very good. Well, that being said, are there any new conditions anybody wish to add to these? Or are we all set with both of them? I think the attorney...
Do you have a bucket truck?
I do not.
I'm going to go through that for a
We don't
while.
plan on having any bucket truck, and you can hold my client to that.
I remember the engineering was very detailed and yeah, it was impressive at the time.
Very good.
Yeah, I remember this case pretty well, too. We're down there too many times.
So on the first case, which is the frontage, let's review that. We'll review them both for any additional conditions and then come back out and read them separately. Actually, I guess we got to make a call to public, don't we?
Yeah.
Taking on both or one?
All right, so we'll make a call to public, and the call will be an opportunity for anybody remotely or within the room to have their thoughts heard or concerns addressed on these applications, either in support or opposition to the application. On the screen, we have the phone numbers posted in order for anyone remotely to be able to enter the room. Phone number is 646-558-8656. At the prompting, please enter the ID number 323-909-140. If you have any technical problems getting into, contact us. You may call 845-5585, and that will connect you to the clerk, and she'll help you get into the meeting. That announcement being made, I now will ask anybody who wishes to support this application to come forward at this time. Seeing no one rise in the room, do we see anybody out there, Mr. Preventure?
Seeing none rise online, Mr. Chair.
Very good. So at the same time now, we will make the announcement. Anybody in opposition to this application, this would be your opportunity to come forward now, either within this room or remotely, following those directions that we have given. At the prompting, you would press star 9 for the operator to see your interest in entering this room remotely. We see anybody out there, Mr. Preventure?
Mr. Chair, seeing none.
Very good. So we'll consider ourselves met by statute for anybody who wishes to speak in regards to this case. That being said, no one came forward. Now we can take a motion to go into deliberation.
I'll make the motion to go into deliberative session.
Could I have a second, please?
Chair, I'll second
Mrs. Moran, seconds. Thank you. All right, in the first motion, which is the frontage on a town-approved street, we have the subject to obtaining all state and town permits and inspections, and the waiver of municipal liability, which the attorney has addressed and brought forward that they acknowledge that. Are there any other conditions we'd like to see on that first motion?
Nope.
No.
Okay, hearing none. So on the second motion, we have the setback from wetlands. We had subject to obtain town and state permits and inspections, and the certificate of elevation to be filed with code enforcement. Of course, that would be prior to occupancy or prior to application, Mr. Mackey?
Typically, once the lowest level is established of the home.
Very good. Thank you for that refresher. Anybody have any other conditions they'd like to have added to that second motion?
Nope.
Seeing no gestures, I guess we're covered on deliberation, so we can come out of that.
I'll make a motion to come out of deliberative session.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Anybody want to second that, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor of coming out of deliberation, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Mrs. Moran, you have a motion to read. We'll read the first motion, vote on it, and then we'll come back for the second.
Okay, thank you. I make a motion on case number 22-153, Edward N. Hebert Associates, Inc., owner Joseph McCarran, Deborah Van Etten, to grant a variance to the terms of Article 6, Section 165-46.C.2 of the Town of Derry zoning ordinance to allow the construction of a single-family dwelling on a property which does not have frontage on a town-approved street at 13 Field Road, PID 56001, zoned MDR, as presented with the following conditions. We have two. The first is subject to obtaining all state and town permits and inspections. 2, a waiver of municipal liability and responsibility must be recorded with the deed prior to obtaining a building permit. And that concludes the reading of the first motion. I need a second.
Mr. Burgess?
I'll make a second.
Thank you, sir. Let me note findings of fact for this case. The applicant is requesting the extension of a pre-approval. There are 2 variances requested for frontage and water setback. The zoning for this parcel is MDR, and no noted changes to the conditions of the property to prevent this approval. A little premature there, but anybody object to those findings of fact, say so now. Seeing no gestures, all in favor of moving this motion for a vote, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let's poll the board. Mr. Ver?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mrs. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Burgess?
Yes.
And the chair will make that unanimous by a vote of 5-0. So congratulations on that first leg. Let's go back to the, give me a motion, go into deliberation on the second motion, please.
I make the motion to go into deliberative session.
I'll second.
All righty, thank you. We have the subject to obtaining all state and town permits and inspections and the certificate of elevation to be filed with the code enforcement. Are there any other concerns to this application or any conditions anyone wishes to add? Seeing no gestures there, Mr. Corbett, you all set?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I have
Very
nothing to
good.
add.
Thank you. I think that motion is established. We can have a motion to come out of deliberation.
I'll make the motion to come out of deliberative session.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Mr. Ver has that again. Sorry, Mr. Corbett. The same findings of fact will apply to the second motion, and all in favor, Mrs. Moran, you have a motion to read.
I do, thank you. I make a motion on case number 22-153, Edward N. Hebert Associates, Inc., owner Joseph McCarran and Deborah Van Etten, to grant a variance to the terms of Article 3, Section 165-20.A of the Town of Derry zoning ordinance to allow the construction of a single-family dwelling on the property less than 75 feet from a wetland at 13 Field Road, PID 56001, zoned MDR, as presented with the following conditions. We have 2. 1, subject to obtaining all state and town permits and inspections. 2, certificate of elevation to be filed with code enforcement. And that concludes the reading of the motion. I need a second.
I'll make a second.
Mr. Burgess has that second, and so all in favor of moving this for a vote, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Burgess, what say you?
I say yes.
Mr. Ver?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mrs. Moran?
Yes.
And the chair will make that unanimous on that point as well, so congratulations, Mr. McCarron is all set to move forward. Anybody aggrieved by this decision, of course, has 30 days to ask for a rehearing. After that, recourse is to Superior Court, but for now, you're all set.
Thank you very much to the Honorable Board, appreciate it.
All right, have a good evening.
Have a good night. Happy holiday.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so next on the agenda is we have no other correspondence, and we have no additional matters to take up other than the minutes. We have the minutes from November 17th. Were there any changes to those minutes?
Yes.
They were, okay, so those, everyone else is all set. If everyone is all set with those changes, I could use a motion to accept the motion, or accept the minutes as amended.
Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from November 17th as amended.
Very good. Have a second, please, anybody?
I'll second.
Mr. Ver has a second on that. All in favor of approval of those minutes as stipulated, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Gentlemen, you all set remotely?
Yes.
Very good. All right, so next up is the December 1st minutes. Were there changes there, Ginny?
I have not received anything.
Okay, very good. So we will take those, I need a motion to accept those minutes as presented, please.
I'll make the motion to accept those minutes as
Very
accepted.
good. Mr. Burgess has that motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Ver's second. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Very good. We have anything in the queue for next meeting?
Nothing yet, although the deadline is next Wednesday, and I do expect a couple applications to come in for that first week. I think it's the first week in January. I think it's the 5th, but nothing official yet.
Okay, very good. So that's probably going to wrap us up for the year and the calendar year and the month of December. So anybody wish to sign off before we take a motion to adjourn?
I have a question.
Yes.
When I was, what?
I
Yes?
said, why?
Why? Well, that's because I'm a curious individual. The, when I was reading the minutes, I noticed that it appears that we have to allow the public to attend remotely. Is that true?
We don't have to anymore. And this has been a discussion that perhaps that time is coming to an end, that we will discontinue that option.
Because, you know, the only reason I ask is it's nice to be able to allow people to attend remotely, but should we have technical issues that preclude people from attending remotely, you know, I don't know whether it's wise to say that we're going to adjourn until those issues are resolved. You know, I did reach out to the council, the town council, because I believe they operate under the same conditions as we do, and they said that you know, they continue to provide the opportunity to attend remotely, but they don't make remote attendance a condition of continuing the meeting. You know, so like I said, that's just one of those things that if we get backlogged, it seems like, you know, if something was to happen and we say, well, the audio's down, we're going to adjourn and get even more backlogged. You know, so that's just my opinion.
Yeah, so it's a courtesy, but it could be a courtesy that causes other issues, and so I think it's worthwhile to look at discontinuing that. Not going to make a motion on that this evening or a decision on it, but certainly in the short future, we're probably going to end up going to that route.
Yeah. Well, this is one of those things where people get used to not attending public things, and I don't think that's a good thing. It's because it's the same situation with, early voting or absentee voting. People should they should participate in person, in my mind, and this making things easy is not a good idea in my mind. So
I disagree with that.
I also disagree.
Yeah, there are people who can't get out of their house.
Well, I'm
make
not
it very
saying that.
difficult for them to get here or to any other public facility. So it would be beneficial for those people to have a voice.
Well, I agree with you on that, but just to make it a carte blanche approval that people, I don't feel like going to the polling place to vote,
Well, that's not what we're talking about.
Well, I'm talking about in generality, that, if we make things easy to where you don't have to attend, public meetings or go to polling places to vote, it's...
Public participation of civic issues where traditionally has always been required that the public be there to participate is noted, and I understand Mr. Burgess's point. However, this board has always provided opportunity for people to call code enforcement, write a letter prior to the meeting so that we're aware of considerations that need to be looked at. It's not like voting on both points in that in voting you can't write a letter to the town clerk and say I intend to vote for X for president. But in this regard, and provided an intention of the statutes where assistance is required from the municipal employees, provides that opportunity for people to have their concerns vetted without the technical difficulties or problems that could hinder their intentions. So I think overall that probably steers us in the direction that's most likely more beneficial to everybody to start to head back to the way we were prior to March of 2020.
Well,
Chair, if I may.
I've always felt that we should encourage participation on the part of abutters here at zoning board meetings. And if there are elderly people and it's a particularly nasty evening, for example, they still would have the opportunity to do that. And I don't think we need to necessarily advertise it. We can make it known that could be allowed. I'd like to see it continue, but I don't think that we necessarily have to monitor every single case,
Well, I agree with what he's saying. I think we should be able to put the numbers up and have those people be able to participate because they can't get here for one reason or another. Or if someone's sitting at home watching this and then after the after the things come up and people talk about what's going on, because nobody knows what this is all about until we get here. In most cases, they come out and tell us what it is, and we have our discussion that allows us to, further talk to the applicant to get out the reasons why he's doing this or why he's not. And like tonight's thing we did, it took us a long time. And then there might be a question that they wouldn't know to ask by writing a letter.
Okay, very good. Thank you for letting your points known. Mr. Tripp, thank you for stirring the pot.
as he's wont to do.
Mr. Corbett came up on a monitor at one point.
Say again?
Mr. Corbett came up
Yes,
on...
I know. Are you done talking?
I am now.
He might like to say something.
Mr.
I'm
Corbett,
sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of chime in that I don't see the need to repeal this as, one, obviously I'm calling in tonight, so there's part of my vote, but, with everything that's going on right now, not even just what happened in 2020, but I think this is a technological advancement that, we need to take advantage of. They did town meetings in the 1700s because they couldn't do anything else. I think that this allows people, to Mr. Burgess's point, when they're sitting at home and they may not have realized something was happening, to be able to participate. But as far as the board, or even when there is inclement weather or something going on, that it allows people to still be able to have their cases heard rather than scrambling for 5 people to be able to come in. That it allows, we can't call in if we're not going to allow other people to call in. So I don't see this really as an issue that needs to be addressed. I think it's working. I don't see why we would go back and address it.
Okay, anybody else?
Well, I will try not to opine on this conversation at the current juncture. I would like to say that I meant no offense by excluding the females in the audience by my abandoning you guys comment earlier. That was generic.
I'm not offended.
I think Mrs. Moran took the guys thing in a generic sense.
I'm just one of the guys.
Okay? All right, so if there's nothing else, we can take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess.
I'll second the
I
motion.
think I'll give that to Mr. Bimba.
Okay,
I appreciate his
his participation.
participation, that's correct.
Yeah.
So that motion's been made and second. Anybody all in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a good evening, have a good Christmas, everybody.
And Merry Christmas all.
Take care, everybody.